Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. If you're just joining us, my name is Bob Bianchi, and we are in Broward County, Florida for the double murder trial of YNW Melly. We're hearing testimony right now from the medical examiner, Rebecca McDougall. She's being called on behalf of the state, obviously. She's on direct examination. So let's head back into court in what prosecutors are hoping is going to be wow testimony. Will it pan out? Let's check it out.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to become involved in an investigation under the Broward Medical Examiner's Office, case number 2018-3118?
I did.
What was your involvement?
So I was the medical examiner on service that day. So this case came in at like 4:45 in the morning, I believe, 5 o'clock in the morning. So it becomes my case, because anything before 7 a.m. is mine. There was a double homicide. Broward County Medical Examiner's Office has a fellowship program. I was one of the fellows. And so I took one of the cases, and our fellow Dr. Sauter took the other case, the companion case in this case. So I did the autopsy on Mr. Williams.
Objection.
Suggestion.
Identity.
Thank you. Objection, I'll will proceed.
Okay, so you said you performed the autopsy on an individual who later became known to you as Anthony Williams.
That's correct.
So you talked about the fellowship, and that you said it was the last year training?
That's correct.
In terms of what is your role in supervising the fellow?
So there are 5 associate medical examiners in my office and 1 deputy chief medical examiner. So when the fellow is on service with you, it is your responsibility to be there. July and August, you're real close, right? Because they're just starting. They've done probably 50 autopsies in their residency. So the first month or 2, you're right there by them. But as they graduate and show you that they're competent, that they know what they're doing, then they will do their autopsies and come to you if they have any questions. You're also responsible for reviewing their report before it's signed out.
Okay. So in this case, with regards to the autopsy of Anthony Williams, were there photographs that were taken?
There were.
Would those photographs help explain and illustrate to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the process and how that is undertaken?
They were.
Okay. So you're showing what's been previously shown to the defense counsel as marked as states ZZZ for identification purposes only. Dr. McDougall, did you have an opportunity to look through those photos?
I did.
Coming into court?
I did.
Do they fairly and accurately depict the autopsy of one Anthony Williams on October 26th of 2018?
They do.
Do they reflect the Broward County Medical Examiner's Office case number that was assigned?
They do.
Here at this time, the state would request to move state ZZZ in at state 73.
Any objection not previously raised?
Not previously raised, no.
Any objection voted? They'll be introduced. So moved.
Now here, composite 23 photos and 1 USB.
State ZZZ wants state 73.
I'm sorry, what number?
73. Thank you.
So, Doctor, before we get into the actual photos, can you explain what a scene visit is?
I can. So the medical examiner by statute and administrative code has jurisdiction over a body. Okay, so when a decedent passes away on the scene, the medical examiner or the investigator will go to that scene. These individuals were transported to the hospital. They died at the hospital. So therefore, at the time of the examination, there was no scene to visit.
Okay. So I'm going to go forward. And how do you receive the body of Mr. Williams?
So when the body leaves the hospital, it actually, the 2 zippers on the bag get a seal put through them. It comes to our office, and this was actually the same morning, so this individual came straight into our office, and then probably within an hour or two was ready to be examined. So the bag is sealed at the hospital, comes to our office. The very first photograph we take is a photograph of that seal, so we can show that it's still intact, and it must be broken by the medical examiner on duty.
Oh. And did you receive it from the body of Mr. Williams in this way?
I did.
Okay. What in the picture that we're looking at, which is, I believe, photo number 2, is numbered for the purposes of the record. What does this picture show?
So this is one end of the body bag with the 2 zippers in place with a red seal between it, still intact. That case number 183118. So that is the 3,118th case for the medical examiner in the year 2018. That is a unique identifying number for this case and will be in every photograph that is taken for this examination.
For the purposes of orientation,
Yes.
the letter, the top of the A, in almost each photograph, what direction does it point towards?
So the letter should point towards the head. Okay, so every photograph that we see, the case number, to look at it properly, the head should be above the number when you're looking at it the right way.
So prior to opening the bag, is there a scan or some sort of x-ray that's done?
So Broward County is lucky enough to have what's called a LODOX. Okay, it's low radiation full body x-ray. So every single case that comes into our office gets both an AP, which is a front to back, and a lateral, which is from the side, x-ray. So we have those.
Okay, so you said AP. I know you know what that means, but if you could describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that means.
So anterior, posterior, so the beam of the radiation is going through. When you look at the body, it's the way you would see a body. Then we do one that's a lateral, where the beam goes through the side of the body, so we get the side. That allows us, especially if we're looking for foreign objects in a body, if I only have a picture front to back, I can tell about where it is front to back, but where is it? Is it right up here, or is it closer to the back of the body? So we have a lateral x-ray that we take. So I can see where in space, in 2D, not as good as 3D, right? But I get a 2D orientation of where that foreign object might be.
Okay. In terms of when you're describing your findings, do you do them in anatomical position?
Yes,
And could you describe what that is to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
I can. Can I show you?
Please, if that would help.
Can you stand up?
Yes.
So anatomic position, where's my water, is with your hands out like this, palmar surface forward, just like this.
When you are describing your findings in anatomical position, are you in any way suggesting that was the position the body was in when any injuries or defects were inflicted upon it?
I am not.
To go back, before we go into the photos of the autopsy itself, could you describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you do during an autopsy?
Sure. So the first thing that the pathologist will do is break that seal. Okay, that seal is broken, the bag is opened, and we take what we call overall photographs. These are photographs that are taken before we do anything to the body, before we move the body, before we clean the body. We take photographs so we can see it as is. Once that is done, then we'll take the body out of the body bag. We will look for any identifying features, so scars, tattoos, defects. We take pictures of the hands as they are. Once we're satisfied with those photographs, then we will clean the body. And once the body is cleaned, then we will take overall photographs again with the body cleaned. Then we will take both an orientation shot and a close-up shot of any defects, scars, or identifying marks.
Okay, so after you've done, it sounds like an external examination, is there another part of the autopsy procedure?
So then we do the internal examination.
Okay. And when you're doing the internal examination, what do you do?
So we're looking for any kind of injury, disease, anything that's abnormal, right? Also want to look at what is normal. So we look at all of the organs, weigh all the organs, and complete our exam.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to what was labeled in the photos labeled as photo 1. And so if we can describe what we are looking at here on photo 1. I'm gonna...
So this is the AP, or anterior posterior, full body x-ray. That was taken before the bag was opened.
So in terms of the different colors and things that we are looking at in this, what do you see that is medically significant?
I'm not a radiologist, but what I will tell you is that this is a projectile, and there are projectile fragments in the head. This is dental restorations.
In terms of any of the other things on this that are...
These are all buttons, I think, from a hospital gown.
Okay.
So it's just artifact from the clothing that he's wearing.
So going on to the next photo here. I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit. What is this picture showing?
So this is one of our overall photographs that we take once the body has been cleaned. What you can see in this photograph is what later becomes known as an entrance gunshot wound, a defect, a circular defect to the middle of the chest.
Okay. And that was for the purposes of what we were looking at in the photographs number 3. Okay. Going on to photo number 4. What is the purpose of this photograph?
So this is what we call it's called a headshot. It's our identification shot. It's a picture of the decedent's face, also with a number. So this 18-3118, this is the big number. You saw it, the smaller one in the picture of body bag. That's the unique identifying number for this case that came through our office.
In terms of the way that you label or determine gunshots or entrances or exits, is there a specific pattern you follow?
Every pathologist does it differently. I like to start at the top of the head and go down, and then we turn them over on their back, and then we start at the top of the head again and go down.
Okay.
So it's an arbitrary system dependent on the pathologist on how they want to organize the number of defects that they have in their case.
Are you assigning a specific order based on the labels that you use?
I'm not.
No.
Head to toe.
Going on to the next photo, what are we looking at here?
So these are the pictures of the hands cleaned up. We take dirty pictures of the hands, and then we take clean pictures of the hands. We document the hands to look to see if there's any evidence of any kind of injuries. Are there any bruises? Are there any scrapes? Are there any cuts?
And did you document any scrapes, injuries, or bruises on this left hand?
There are not.
And that is photo number 5. Going on to photo number 6. What are we looking at here?
So this is the left hand. It's the palmar surface. So we'll take 3 photographs of each hand, at least 3. Okay, 3 if they're negative, right? So the back surface, the front surface, and the side.
Okay. And you mentioned the side photo. Moving on to photo number 7.
Correct.
And in terms of the left hand, were there any bruises, injuries, any defensive wounds of any sort on the left hand?
There were not.
Can you define what a defensive wound is for the jury?
I can. So defensive wounds are usually wounds that are on the extremities. They don't have to be on the hands.
Okay, Bob, so what are your thoughts so far about this witness direct examination?
Pretty standard fare, Bob. Like nothing out of the ordinary. She's kind of going through the logistics of the wounds, and it's nothing unexpected. Again, I know we talked about it last hour a little bit. I still find the placement odd. I think more of what the state is hoping is that the photos, once they get introduced, will probably resonate with the jury because it's closer to the end of the, the state's case in chief. But we'll see. It's a typical ME testimony is what I'm getting from it.
You know what, though, Bob, I find interesting, and maybe our audience would too, especially those who aren't trial attorneys, is when a witness like this gets up on the stand, it could be for the prosecution, it could be for the defense, in this case, the prosecution. There's more to it than just listening to the words that are coming out of your mouth. As an attorney, you're really paying attention. How does she answer questions? What's her level of familiarity testifying? Because that could really determine the manner in which you're going to cross-examine a witness like this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I'm always doing that when I have an ME on the stand. If it's somebody who's been up there and you can tell that they are very good at testifying at trial, you're going to tread more carefully, because that's where, as a defense attorney, you're going to catch yourself, getting caught up, where you're trying to get a point made, and then they end up being able to rebut it. So it kind of puts egg on your face. So yeah, you really have to try to evaluate the skill level of the expert that's up on the stand when you're trying to determine how hard you're going to go at that witness, or if you're just going to kind of let them, slide a little bit in terms of say, hey, this is what they testified to.
You probably heard me say this before, Bob. One of the greatest things one of my mentors told me is to look at an expert like this like a bear in a cage that's really hungry, and you want to lock that cage, and you don't want to get in that cage because you're going to get tore up. So maybe you take little pokes at the bear and kind of move away, and depending on the skill set of that expert and how they handle cross depends on whether you want to get close to that cage or not. So, okay, 100%. Bob. Yeah, for sure. Hey, these are things that make differences in cases, whether people like it or not. It's a reality. It's a human institution. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other end. Please stay with us. In the Melly case, we're hearing testimony on direct examination by prosecutors from medical examiner Dr. Rebecca McDougall. Let's head back into that courtroom.
Hands. They can be on the forearms. They can be on the shins. Any part of your extremities that can move to block your core from any kinds of injuries. Okay, so you want to, your feet or your legs, your arms or your hands will get in the way of something that's coming at you, if you're in a fight or something, to keep that part of your body, your core, from being injured.
Okay, moving on to photograph number 8. Have we moved on to the other hand now?
Now we're on the right hand. So this is the back surface of the right hand, documenting that there are no injuries.
Okay, so moving on to photograph number 9.
Side of the right hand, no injuries.
Okay. And photograph number 10.
So the inside of the right hand, no injuries.
So we're going to move on to what's been labeled as entrance wound B. Can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where this wound on this gunshot wound B, entrance wound, is?
So it's in the middle of the chest.
Okay. In terms of, do you document in your report the distance from the top of the head?
I do. I don't memorize that. So if I can look at my report.
Do you need to refresh your recollection? Please.
So that wound is 19¼ inches. Oh no, that's, below the top of the head.
And in terms of the left to right distance, how far is that?
It's 1/2 inch right of the anterior midline.
And can you define for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is a perforating gunshot wound?
I can. So for gunshot wounds, for forensic pathologists, there's 2 kinds. There's a penetrating gunshot wound. Goes in, doesn't come out. Penetrates. I recover a projectile. Then there's a perforating gunshot wound. It perforates the body. I have an entrance, and I have an exit, and I don't collect a projectile.
And so, Dr. McDougall, so the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have an idea. How many autopsies have you done in which gunshot wounds have been a cause of death?
Probably 600 or 700.
The gunshot wound that we're looking at right here, is there anything about soot, stippling, or muzzle imprint?
So this is so in forensic pathology we have 3 different ranges of fire. And for gunshot wounds we are tasked with trying to determine the range of fire. There is what's called a contact gunshot wound, which means that the muzzle of the gun is up against the target when the gun goes off. In those cases, you have a nice round deposition of soot on the entrance wound. The next is called intermediate. With an intermediate gunshot wound, if you take your target and your gun and you move away from your target, okay, so you're far enough away now that you're not going to leave a nice ring of soot, you're going to get something that's called stipple. Okay, so the gunpowder coming out of the gun will tattoo the skin. You will get a nice pattern, a spray of stipple on the skin. Those are intermediate gunshot wounds. With indeterminate gunshot wounds, that either means that the muzzle of the gun is far enough away from the target that all the gunpowder falls off before the projectile hits the body, or there's something in the way of the skin, between the skin and the weapon, that any evidence of close range firing would be on that clothing. Okay? If you have someone that's shot in the chest, you'd want to look for evidence of close range firing on what they're wearing, because it has to go through that before it hits the body. And that gunpowder is not going to get to the skin because the clothes are in the way.
Okay, and so, Doctor, I want to make sure we understand, on intermediate,
Yep.
on that, do you do any range of fire testing?
On clothing,
What about on skin or human body?
you have to do it, no. You have to do it on clothing.
Is any of that your area of expertise where you would recreate that?
On the clothing?